He likes to do these bits, you know, where he kind of does a version of me.
For more than 50 years, Ron Howard has been known as Hollywood's nicest man, calm, humble, and almost impossible to anger. From his days as the freckled boy on The Andy Griffith Show to directing masterpieces like Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, he built a reputation for patience and kindness in an industry fueled by ego, but even the gentlest man has his breaking point. Behind the quiet smile and soft-spoken interviews lies a history of tension, betrayal, and frustration with some of Hollywood's biggest names. In rare moments of honesty, Howard admitted there were 6 actors he would never work with again, not out of hate, but out of exhaustion. And as it turns out, the first name on that list wasn't a rival or a legend. It was someone who once stood right beside him, under the same spotlight, Henry Winkler, at the height of Happy Days. Ron Howard and Henry Winkler seemed inseparable, the clean-cut Richie Cunningham and the effortlessly cool Fonzie. Together, they shaped an entire generation's idea of friendship. But as the show's success exploded, the balance began to shift. The writers started centering every storyline around Fonzie, and Richie, once the heart of the show, slowly faded into the background. For Ron, it wasn't jealousy, it was disillusionment. Hollywood had turned what was supposed to be teamwork into competition. He still respected Henry, but couldn't ignore how the fame had changed everything around them. When Ron finally left Happy Days, he did it quietly. No scandal, no anger, just a decision to find his own light away from someone else's shadow. Years later, they reconciled as old friends. But the lesson stayed. Because the next actor Ron worked with would remind him once again that brilliance often comes wrapped in chaos, and this time, that chaos had a name. Russell Crowe. Working with Russell Crowe on A Beautiful Mind was both a dream and a test for Ron Howard. Crowe was brilliant, intense, committed, and frighteningly immersed in his role as John Nash. But with that brilliance came volatility. He challenged every line of dialogue, questioned every camera angle, and often stormed off set when things didn't go his way. Howard, known for his calm patience, found himself walking on eggshells just to keep the production steady. Yet, despite the chaos, Crowe's performance was undeniable, raw, haunting, and deeply human. The film went on to win 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, but the victory came at a cost. Howard later admitted he felt drained, not triumphant. He respected Crowe's genius, but never forgot the storm behind it, and as fate would have it, the next legend he encountered made Crowe look tame in comparison, a man whose name was both worshipped and feared in Hollywood. That man was Marlon Brando. By the time Ron Howard met Marlon Brando, he already knew what working with difficult actors felt like, but nothing prepared him for Brando. The legendary star, whose talent had once redefined acting itself, had by then become unpredictable, moody, and defiant. During pre-production on a project that never made it to completion, Brando refused to learn his lines, demanded cue cards scattered across the set, and often arrived hours late. When he did show up, he would improvise entire scenes, ignoring direction completely. For Howard, who thrived on discipline and collaboration, it was chaos disguised as genius. Crew members whispered that working with Brando was like chasing a storm that didn't want to be caught. In the end, the film fell apart before it was ever finished, a casualty of brilliance gone unchecked. And though Howard tried to forget the experience, Hollywood wasn't done testing his patience, because the next actor he worked with didn't just challenge his authority. He shattered it in ways that no director could fully control. That man was Tom Sizemore. Tom Sizemore was the kind of actor who burned bright and fast. When Ron Howard cast him in Ransom, 1996, he saw raw talent, the kind that could electrify a scene. But on set, That energy quickly turned volatile. Sizemore would show up late, argue with co-stars, and sometimes forget entire lines. Rumors of drug use and sleepless nights followed him everywhere. Howard, known for his calm leadership, tried to keep control, but chaos had already taken root. Crew members began to dread his outbursts, while Sizemore's intensity teetered between brilliance and breakdown. One day, after yet another delay, Howard made the rare decision to halt production entirely, not out of anger, but to protect his team. The movie was finished, but the partnership was over. Years later, when Sizemore passed away, Howard's tribute was short and distant, respectful, but cold. And just when he thought he'd seen every kind of difficulty, he faced a new one, not chaos, but control. Her name was Shelley Long. When Ron Howard worked with Shelley Long on his 1982 comedy Night Shift, he was still a young director eager to prove himself. Shelley was talented, sharp, and undeniably professional, but also relentless. Every scene became a negotiation. She questioned camera angles, rewrote her lines, and argued over comedic timing. Her precision was admirable, but her perfectionism left little room for spontaneity. Howard tried to adapt, balancing her need for control with the playful chaos that actors like Michael Keaton thrived on. But by the end of filming, the tension was obvious. Shelley wanted mastery. Ron wanted magic. The movie was a success. Yet Howard walked away with a quiet lesson burned into him. Talent means nothing without trust. He would later say, "The best actors surrender to the story. They don't try to own it." Still, nothing could prepare him for the person who had taught him that lesson long before he even became a director. The man who played his father on television, and whose warmth on screen hid a much colder truth off it. That man was Andy Griffith. For Ron Howard, no relationship cut deeper than the one he had with Andy Griffith. As a child actor on The Andy Griffith Show, Ron saw Andy as both a mentor and a second father. On screen, their bond was pure, the gentle sheriff and his wide-eyed son. But off camera, the warmth faded. At first, Andy was patient, guiding the young Ron through the rhythms of television. But as the show grew more popular, pressure began to change him. Crew members whispered that fame had hardened Griffith, that his laughter now stopped the moment the cameras did. Ron felt the chill, too. His questions about acting were brushed aside. His curiosity met with silence. The man who'd taught him about kindness seemed to lose his own. When the series ended, Ron was only a teenager, but he walked away older, wiser, and quietly heartbroken. He never spoke ill of Andy, even years later, only saying, "He taught me what show business really costs." Koram. When Griffith died in 2012, Howard's tribute was brief, respectful but restrained, a farewell without sentiment, because by then he had already learned the hardest truth of Hollywood. Sometimes the people who teach you how to shine are the ones who burn you first. Looking back now, Ron Howard sees those 6 names: Henry Winkler, Russell Crowe, Marlon Brando, Tom Sizemore, Shelley Long, and Andy Griffith, not as enemies, but as chapters. Each one tested a different part of him: his patience, his kindness, his belief in people, from Winkler. He learned humility, from Crowe, endurance, from Brando, the limits of genius, from Sizemore, the importance of discipline, from Shelley, the danger of control, and from Griffith, the painful truth that heroes can disappoint. These encounters didn't harden Ron. They refined him. They taught him that the real power of a director isn't shouting commands, but creating calm in chaos. He once said, "The camera can't lie, but people can, and that's why kindness matters more than talent." That philosophy became his compass. On his sets, everyone is heard, No one is humiliated. Crew members describe working with him as peaceful, even when things go wrong. Perhaps it's because he's seen what happens when ego takes over. He's lived it, survived it, and quietly vowed never to become it. And yet, behind that steady calm, there's still a quiet fire, the same drive that turned a small-town boy into one of Hollywood's most respected storytellers. Ron Howard may be known for his gentleness, but make no mistake, his kindness is not weakness. It's armor. It's choice. It's the strength to stay decent in a business that rewards the opposite. Today, at 70, he remains the rarest kind of figure in Hollywood, a man uncorrupted by it. When asked if he holds grudges against those who made his life harder, he simply smiled and said, "No, they taught me how to lead." Then he paused, his voice softer. "But I'll never forget the day I learned that even kindness has limits." And that's the unspoken truth behind Ron Howard's legend, that in a world built on ego, the real revolution was never about power. It was about staying human.